Burnham got his foot in the door of internet stardom in the early days of the internet we know now, uploading his first YouTube video, My Whole Family, on the 21st of December 2006. Since his early days on the internet, Bo's career has catapulted him into worldwide stardom, releasing a total of 4 comedy specials, a feature film, and an MTV show that he created, wrote, and directed, and acting roles in Hall Pass, Adventures in the Sin Bin, Parks and Recreation, Key and Peele, We Bare Bears, Rough Night, and Promising Young Woman. All projects receiving audience and critical acclaim, with his latest installment, Inside, being nominated for 22 awards, winning in 10 categories. This project will delve into the history of the industry's treatment of its brightest stars through an examination of Bo Burnham's self-awareness and the experience of growing up involved in such a volatile industry. People finding themselves in the public spotlight at such a young age unfortunately have a tendency to suffer from long-lasting or lifelong problems, as its history showcases an unnervingly long, detailed history of suffering ending in public outbursts, mental breakdowns, manic depressive episodes, and self-destructive behaviour. The most notable cases of this in recent history include Shia LaBeouf's declining mental health and treatment of those around him, Britney Spears and Miley Cyrus's meltdowns in the prominent public eye, and Amy Winehouse's descent into darkness leading to her tragically cutting her life short. Proof of the history of these issues and the public's fascination for them are evident in the dubbed 27 Club, an extensive list of notable people who lost their lives aged 27 by unnatural causes. What such an upbringing can do to one's psyche is completely and utterly unimaginable to the public, who have no method of being able to relate to similar feelings due to the complex, unique nature of such a burst of popularity. Getting his first taste of fame and attention at such a young age, young Bo Burnham had no intention of finding internet star status when he uploaded his first video back in 2006, intended to be viewed by no one outside Bo's family. But as history proves, online culture will take itself in whatever direction it chooses, regardless of the poster's original intent. My Whole Family burst into popularity almost overnight, and with Bo indirectly starting his career with a raw, exposing video about him and his loved ones, he didn't realise that it would only get more intense from here. It is clear from seeing Bo talk about his younger self and his out-of-date opinions on the world and the path he took to be where he is now, that Bo sees himself as the one to blame for the hurt he has suffered and the pain he has gone through from everything that has stemmed from his rise to fame on YouTube. It's an interesting thought to think that if Bo had been more knowledgeable about the future of the online media industry, or had he started shaping his career in today's world, would he have made it? Or even more, would he have chosen to continue? Bo's comedy specials, What?, Make Happy, Words, 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 and the recent Inside, as well as his extracurricular work on projects like 8th Grade, give us a closer insight to his experiences and attitudes surrounding the industry, and also a deeper understanding of how being raised on the internet from such a young age can shape vulnerable people years after an explosion of popularity at such a malleable time in their development. Bo has frequently stated that he suffers from imposter syndrome, a mental health condition most commonly found in celebrities or people of notoriety, where the occupant often feels guilty or unworthy for the praise and success they possess. People with this condition often don't feel they've properly earned the position they're in, and subsequently feel like a phony or a fraud. Other notable people like Tom Hanks, Lady Gaga, and Maisie Williams have openly talked about their ongoing struggles with imposter syndrome and how it affects their everyday lives.
Am I a fraud? Am I actually what this is? Am I actually being true to myself enough to feel as though at any given moment I truly am present?
Growing up on the internet is something that we as a society are still learning how to deal with effectively to enable our young to live the most successful lives possible by taking advantage of the constantly changing cultures and resources brought by modern technology. Social platforms, from MSN to Twitter to YouTube, encourage interaction between its users, enabling them to voice their thoughts and opinions on any given topic out to the world. The darker side of this, however, takes the idea that everyone has total freedom and control over their online persona and behaviour and ramps it up to 100. Millions of people around the globe will often voice opinions that could cause any given viewer distress, anger, anxiety, or controversy. The term commonly used to describe this behaviour is a keyboard warrior, a harsh name given to those who hide behind the anonymity of the internet and hold very little regard or sympathy for those they come across, only one internet connection away from each other.
Very cool, way to go!
It lacks face-to-face interaction, so any given person may not see the harmful impact of what they are saying or doing upon another person, and can use the anonymity as a shield from real-world consequences. Although very useful in a lot of ways, this anonymous social mask almost encourages verbal and violent outbursts from unstable or insecure people searching for validation. This often materializes as written abuse in comments and posts, and is known to break people on the receiving end down, leading to an array of future issues, trauma, or a steady decline in mental well-being. Bo's song We Think We Know You, from his second special What, stands true to Bo's style of comedy while also being the best avenue for Bo to indirectly narrate his experiences with social and studio pressures, the effects of fame on a person, and the tainted would-be ordinary livelihood that is brought with notability.
We know you.
The song focuses on Bo encountering imaginary characters based on real people he has met in the past, an old classmate, a stoner friend, and a greedy agent, all of whom are consciously focused on their own self-interests while attempting to hold normal conversation with someone they claim to know inside and out. Especially for someone who didn't initially ask for the fame and praise they were receiving, Bo must have experienced some level of emotional whiplash and disorientation when approached with praise by the very people who used to ignore him, turn him down and belittle him, despite his upbringing and experiences not only as a budding young comedian, but also as a skinny white kid born in the middle of nowhere to a religious family trying to find his place in the world. But by this point in his journey, Bo had discovered so much about himself, and it's very clear that he doesn't want to lose all of the hard work he's put in through tainting his art and mediums of expression. The three characters in the song all try to pull Bo in their direction and pick apart one part of his new persona, but Bo does what he does best: music. He takes the unwanted advice from people trying to manipulate him for fame, clout, or money and flips it on its head by giving them what he wants. He takes their voices, the very things they use to criticize Bo, and he makes music with them, ignoring and invalidating their opinions. He perceives them as unhelpful and useless. Their goals don't line up with his. By the end of the song, Bo has almost entirely drowned them out with a beautiful guitar solo, making them almost entirely unrecognizable. He uses his art to deflect the things that will only make it more difficult.
His creativity is like a shield against the people who think they know him best.
The special ends with one final statement.
Mr. Burnham.
Bo takes control of his destiny one last time by adding the final stamp to the project. He understands the hard work put in by everyone who made the special possible, but refuses to relieve himself of the credit other people will desperately try to claim for themselves.
You were so skinny and weird back then, but now you're anyway.
He refuses to let anyone say, "I helped make Bo Burnham what he is." The special Make Happy climaxes with one last song from Bo, Are You Happy? Bo finishes the stage show with Can't Handle This, then leaves the stage and seamlessly transitions into his guest house where he later shot inside at his home in LA. The word happy is repeated 12 times throughout the song, almost as if he is trying to hammer the word into his and our brains to convince ourselves that we are not drowning in an existentialist depression, but the prefixes to the questions are framed very cynically.
On a scale from 1 to 0, are you happy? 'Cause you're on your own from here, so are you happy? I'm open to suggestions. Are you happy? But what the fuck kind of question is, am I happy?
The cynical nature of the questions show Bo is indeed drowning in the very thoughts he is trying to convince himself he is not thinking. He tries to confront everyone who lies to themselves about claiming to be truly happy, because he himself has been in that space and knows the incredible burden that comes with such heavy emotions. The intimacy of the setting flaunts the real, undistracted Bo Burnham. No one to perform to other than a camera, no stage fright, just the comfort of his own home and a quiet atmosphere to blast the emotion of full power. The incredible constant pressure put on someone who themselves isn't prepared to handle these strong emotions on a daily basis would have a lasting impact on any of us, and it's clear to see how it has affected and still affects Bo to this day.
For me, I don't know if you felt this, like, my worry was if I say it, it's real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I admit that I'm going through this,
Very much.
it's I've spoken it, and now I'll never stop thinking about it.
As many people with anxiety experience, those with conditions like this feel the need and responsibility to stay and remain strong for the people they live for. Despite already having lived his career for years at the time, during the Make Happy tour of 45 shows in 50 days, Bo sobbed after the very first show backstage.
After the first show, I sobbed backstage.
Wow.
Because like, I mean, I slept 2 hours the night before. I was shaking, like,
Yeah.
it was rough.
This shows us that no matter how long you may be dealing with this internal battle for, you may never be able to fully overcome it. There are plenty of ways you can help pull yourself out of the darkest, deepest holes you may find yourself in. Self-blame, denial, feelings of isolation and loneliness, and a warped perspective or interpretation of other people are very common symptoms and experiences people with anxiety face on a daily basis.
Having anxiety feels like I'm riding a bull. Like, my bull is my nervous system, and I just have to hold on to it. And then, like, being in the world feels like everyone else is an equestrian. You know what I mean? Just like perfectly in sync with their own nervous system, and it just isn't true.
Totally.
There's so many silent battles of it, and
Absolutely.
The very nature of anxiety fuels these feelings of isolation. Bo sees other people handling their anxiety well, but doesn't see that other people might see that of him. It took a long while for Bo to realize that he is not alone in the world. He found incredible comfort finding out that other megastars he looked up to experienced the same fears, emotions, and anxieties, and have done throughout their entire careers.
These mundane, ordinary things can sometimes be the bravest thing you can do, right?
exactly.
Bo also opened up about how anxiety still affects him. He reveals that to date, he had a total of 10 panic attacks on stage mid-performance, and by the basic structure of how his show plays out, wasn't able to take a moment to breathe or sort himself out before going back to it. Bo became able to entirely hide how he was feeling on the inside, stating that even his parents, who were in the audience at one show, didn't realize he was experiencing such inner turmoil on stage, and because of this, in 2017, Bo quit performing stand-up entirely. The years of tearing himself apart and baring his soul to his audience left him with many scars that prevented him from properly expressing himself through his art. He lost himself, so he spent his time working on learning to get better and also found himself working on bigger projects like 8th grade. He addresses these feelings throughout his latest special, Inside. In the second track of the special, Comedy, he says,
I swore I'd never be back, and now I'm back on my feet.
and in the penultimate track, All Eyes on Me, he monologues,
You want to hear a funny story? So, 5 years ago, I quit performing live comedy because I was beginning to have severe panic attacks while on stage, which is not a great place to have them. So I quit, and I didn't perform for 5 years. I spent that time trying to improve myself mentally. And you know what? I did. I got better. I got so much better, in fact, that in January of 2020, I thought, you know what? I should start performing again. I've been hiding from the world, and I need to re-enter. And then, the funniest thing happened.
16 years after the start of his career on YouTube, Bo Burnham releases his grand return to comedy. 2021's Inside launched onto Netflix in May, a comedy special made entirely by Bo himself, everything written, performed, and produced in a single enclosed room. In my opinion, possibly the most emotionally charged and soul-bearing project Bo has ever released in the history of his career. The special was released to the public towards the latter stages of the COVID-19 pandemic, and how this worldwide event affected his mental state is clear and obvious to anyone willing to pay attention for 87 minutes straight. The special consists of creative songs and sketches narrating his descent into madness through one of the darkest times in his life. He uses moments of intense introspection, self-reflection, and pure unfiltered honesty to deliver incredibly intelligent commentary on the world, modern society, corruption, his own mental well-being, what it means to have this career, and his own self-destructive behavior through his patented prickly musical comedy and sketches, masked with connotative and denotative meanings which purposefully blend together and deliver what has been critically described as the best thing Netflix has ever released onto its platform. Bo has always been praised for his willingness to be brutally honest with his audience. His raw self-awareness creates a strong sense of trust, genuinity, and openness with his audience, allowing them to connect to him on a level previously unheard of. He bares his soul to anyone who is willing to listen in interviews, comedy specials, or movies, which forges a deep emotional relationship between himself and his audience. But such a strong parasocial relationship between Bo and the fans alone won't help Bo work through his thoughts and feelings. In many cases, it might even make it worse.
Know what it is. He's not emotionally aware enough to acknowledge it.
There's a disconnect often between what we know rationally and what we feel.
Yep.
Especially in cases of abuse and trauma in childhood, we can grow up and look at it objectively and say that wasn't my fault, that was the adult.
This quote directly ties to Bo's experience with retrospection to his younger self being brought into an adult-ran industry, and his introspection to his mental well-being now as an adult who is seeing the other side of it. When looking deeper into one's past, present, and future psychology, we as mature adults can often make out the differences between rational and irrational thinking and emotions, being able to challenge different thoughts as they appear or reappear, but struggling with the inner battle of doing so. Take the "it's not your fault" scene from Good Will Hunting as a prime example of this. No matter how logical a distinction between thoughts may be, we often struggle to seriously consider those thoughts and apply them to the experience in question, almost as failing to replace the irrational perception of an experience with the more truthful, rational perception, to weld these experiences together and hold them as they are. With someone who is so aware of all the issues they face and has to overcome on a daily basis, this level of introspection can often lead to be very damaging. How being so aware of your thoughts and weaknesses can lead to unheard of amounts of inner turmoil and would make any person go mad. Being self-aware of the root and core effects of something a person may be dealing with at any given time must be dramatically traumatizing to a person's psyche. As someone who has a disabled family member, I know that some of their peers who are fully conscious of their disabilities have struggled severely with the decline of their mental health from being fully aware and conscious of their body failing them, whilst knowing there is nothing that they can do. You can associate this same logic to someone like Bo, who is fully conscious about how and why the industry functions the way it does, why he is treated specifically the way he is by fans and peers, and being fully conscious about knowing there is very little he can do to help himself handle it better. Instead of letting these complex emotions crush and destroy him, he chooses to channel this into his work, fully immersing himself into the worlds he creates, which historically end up exploding out of him, releasing heavy emotional baggage shrouded in silly comedy songs and sketches. Can't Handle This sees Bo use an overfilled burrito and burrito maker as a metaphor for the burden of stardom, and how no one who supposedly knew what they were doing and what the industry can do to a person warned him about the weight of such a responsibility.
I was like, dude, you should have warned me. You're a burrito expert. You should have told me halfway through, hey man, you might be reaching maximum burrito capacity here. Do you think I want a messy burrito? No one wants a messy burrito. The whole appeal of a burrito is that all of the ingredients are contained within the confines of the tortilla. I wouldn't have gotten half this shit if I knew it was gonna fit in the burrito. All right, look.
I wouldn't have got the lettuce if I knew it wouldn't fit. Wouldn't have got the cheese if I knew it wouldn't fit. Wouldn't have got the peppers if I knew they wouldn't fit. I wouldn't have got half of it. Like, I'm okay with small mistakes. If you got no more chicken, I'll take pork. But I'll blow my dad before I eat a burrito with a fork. Wouldn't have got the lettuce if I knew it wouldn't fit.
Inside the Game is a self-titled sketch from Inside, in which Bo plays a live-streaming gamer on a game that seems silly until you look at it with different eyes. He uses indirect commentary to note down his experience with handling his emotions throughout the creation of Inside through the pandemic, and blurs the lines between denotative and connotative jokes by mixing them together and not defining which is which.
So I can cry. So he's not happy about being in this room. I like the music. The music is actually nice on this. Controls are actually pretty smooth. So you're in this like 2D setup, right? Like I can't control the camera. I'll give it I guess I'll cry again. So is the dude big or is the room small? That's what I'm confused about. Chat saying try the door. Yeah, well, okay. I mean, I don't think it's going to be that simple, but I will. Yeah, there you go. Okay, well, I think I'd probably cry again. Yeah, it's tough, dude. It's tough. He's been in here a while. All right. Okay, he seems a little happier now. That's nice. I don't know. I'll cry, I guess, again. Okay, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be. Oh, nice. Okay, yeah.
When he started writing 8th grade, Bo had just quit stand-up comedy due to his struggles with anxiety, and he felt he was in the perfect place to write a deep, complex, emotional story about an 8th grader dealing with the same emotions in a setting a majority of people would be able to recognize. He set out to talk about how he was feeling at the time he wrote the script, but the setting didn't matter, the emotions did.
So I didn't set out to make a story about a young person. I really just set out to make a story about how I was feeling.
The film revolves around the introverted world of Kayla, a shy 8th grader who broadcasts herself on her YouTube channel, trapped in a vicious cycle of the anxiety and the desire of extroversion. Bo said on a live interview that the idea of the failure to articulate oneself was so compelling to him, allowing him to connect himself with the character as he himself has been in that space.
But it really was like the failure to try to articulate yourself was so compelling to me, and it's the thing that part of the struggle of the character in the movie is feeling like I am failing to deliver in the way that cultural standards sort of sets for me.
Speaking on the modern approach to cultural milestones, Bo said,
by the time I got to the sort of like big moments and milestones of my childhood, I had seen them represented so much in movies and television that whenever I'm in them, I'm like floating above myself, judging myself, going like I had seen a first kiss on so many times. By the time I got to my first kiss, I was like, here it is, that thing I've seen in movies 100 times. And I get to prom going like, this is prom? Like, wait, where, but what's the moment gonna happen when the thing happens? You know how prom gets disrupted by that big climactic thing that always happens?
Bo sees the modern world not as something that people want to use to share stories through film or other media with, but as something that people now use to base and compare their lives to, using them as a cultural standard other than just entertainment. This phenomenon has been referred to many times in the how healthy is social media on young people debate over recent years. People see things on social media and in popular culture and interpret them as something to aspire to achieve. Unachievable goals that people tear themselves apart over, and being someone who is very much so in the public eye, Bo has the unique outlook to this ideology that notable people's lives are not as bright and desirable as some people may think. If people want to achieve Bo's life, they clearly haven't understood and read into how much these colossal pressures affect his everyday life, and disregard how much of a struggle it is to be a role model for millions of people around the world, and how hard dealing with that responsibility while holding up such a front can affect somebody who barely knows how to function.
And I look at kids on their phone, and my first instinct isn't why are they on their phone? It's like, yeah, why would you want to look up at the world right now? Really, for real. Like, of course. Look at the world you made for these kids to look up at. No wonder they're burying their head in the sand.
On that very light note.
Battling between who he is and who people want him to be means his cynical self-awareness of himself and his reality have caused him to swerve his perception of the modern world. Art is Dead, Repeat Stuff, We Think We Know You, Kill Yourself, Can't Handle This, Breakup Song, How the World Works, Welcome to the Internet, Jeffrey Bezos Won, Look Who's Inside Again, Shit. All songs that articulate how bitter and brutally honest Bo is to expressing his distaste for the industry and his experience with how it affects his everyday life. From talking on the over-commercialization of the music industry and the death of artistry in Art is Dead, corporate conglomerates and our acceptance of a dark reality in How the World Works and Jeffrey Bezos 1 and 2, how poorly Bo is doing at stopping his career, affecting his mental well-being, and his experience of life in Breakup Song, Look Who's Inside Again and Can't Handle This, or blatantly on the surface where Bo tells everyone to
Kill yourself.
all the while constantly reminding himself that regardless of what he says, people won't care because at the end of the day, he's just a kid.
I never talk about what I really think about on stage directly because I don't value what I think at this point about those issues. Well, just really, like, I don't think anyone wants to get up and hear a 20-year-old like tell them what they think about how the world works.
He has tried over and over to set boundaries between himself and his art, but fundamentally can't due to the raw nature of the themes and the emotional root of his work, therefore allowing himself to fall deeper and deeper into an existential dread-filled hole where he finds himself being beaten repeatedly with despair, depression, cynicism, intolerance, rage, fury, anger, blame, nihilism, backstabbing, heart-ripping, soul-crushing, and maybe just a little bit of... But at the bottom of this hole, Bo finds quiet. He finds reflection, a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel where he hopes the industry will take him one day. He finds peace, where he allows himself to take himself on a journey to craft the next project, picking up the pieces of himself and creating a new Bo Burnham for the world to gawk at the next time he reaches the surface. Today's media industry is so oversaturated with all forms of content. Anything you could ever dream to find is on the other end of a keyboard. The battle for notoriety has never been more apparent than today. With luck, you can make money on anything you post online, meaning that there has been a surfacing of a new breed of content creation working its way into our modern media. There was a time on the internet where making money wasn't in the picture at all, which meant that the majority of online content was posted by passionate people. This has been referred to as the golden age of the internet.
But like at that time, the internet was much more like a bulletin board.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was sort of like you got something cool, post it, like just show what you have. And now it's much more a place to live and be.
The internet has now transformed into a place where monetary liquidity is the priority, as demand way outweighs the supply for fresh new content. The ease of access to billions of hours of content on demand gives major competition to traditional media by taking away their consistent audience, so they ramp up the production of easy money-making projects to be able to compete. And with the introduction of streaming services like Disney+, Amazon Prime and Netflix, the first major platform to start competing with traditional cinema studios by releasing their own titled blockbuster-level films on their service with A-list stars, giving traditional cinema a great amount of competition as well. These unique circumstances mean that everyone in the industry is pushed to undertake a new outlook and prioritize profit over artistry in order to compete with the competition and not go bust. They push out superficial films with the hope they'll give birth to a new franchise, or reboot films again and again because they work. These giant corporations often can't afford to take risks, meaning that they'll most likely keep forcing sequel after sequel, reboot after reboot, and constantly rehashing the same basic stories to us until they collapse.
Passable films like to multiply. They do just enough for the audience and just enough for the studio and just enough for the stars. They have no problem being funded.
It seems almost all the forms of experimental popular media come from people who are already well established in the industry and have no trouble making money just from their names alone. People like Bo Burnham. People love him and what he creates, and I will be the first to admit that I would watch anything Bo puts out regardless of the content. This mindset causes what people consider to be real cinema, blockbuster movies, to only be sourced from the superpowers in the industry who feel like taking a slight detour into something different. But it makes sense for both perspectives. If people don't pay for an experimental new project and it doesn't make a profit, then the studios lose money, and it discourages them from taking a risk in that field again. As long as they make a profit, everyone's happy, right? Well, no. The evidence of the world's treatment of celebrities has been historically bad. Living in a capitalist society, it comes as no surprise that money is the driving force behind almost every project greenlight or release, and unfortunately leaves the star's well-being as second or third in line of interest. Art is Dead, from Words, 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 perfectly articulates the feeling of somebody making it in the industry. So many lines reference the industry's primary foundation of money generation, and how many people who have the star status aren't equipped to handle such extreme responsibilities. Bo talks about how stars will be compensated for their lack of maturity, almost as if some stars are children being taken advantage of by the industry. These people starve towards attention due to a probable lack of care and attention somewhere in their early life, which slowed or halted their growth and development as an adult. Corporate fat cats will latch themselves onto these talented people and reap the rewards of their creativity in a greedy cycle of supply, demand, and profiteering that benefits nobody in the grander scope of the industry. So what does this all mean for the future of the industry? Well, I don't think anything will naturally evolve to the point where everyone is happy without some form of incentive that benefits the majority of producers and consumers. With the continuing darkening of the nature of the modern world around us, and with the ever-increasing population, there's no wonder people are desperately searching for escapism, and with this growing demand comes the need for growing supply. And with the developing technological standards brought by blockbuster movies, less developed technologies will be rejected by consumers. Great ideas don't happen overnight, they need time to mellow and develop on their own without being forced. So to cut down this time for development and the very little amount of care that we already give to celebrity well-being, and replace it with mindless money-making production time, means the industry will only get darker. The majority will continue to brush off these real attempts for a better world and ignore the very real cries for help when they see them. Celebrity well-being is already so far down the list of everyone's priorities due to the social pressures of our modern capitalist society. The industry has functioned and stayed alive for this long despite its abuse of its stars, so people are too well accustomed to not paying enough attention to well-being. Everyone is always worried about making or losing money, because that's just what the industry runs on. Not always passion or love or care. It's the money that makes the film world go round. You can't make a film without money, you can't support yourself without money, but you also can't make a project without a star to help you deliver your message. So why is so little attention paid unless it's front page tabloid worthy? Whatever the future holds for modern media, it needs to change its priorities. I hope that one day we, collectively, can start to view people of notoriety as humans, not the untouchable relics or gods on the pedestals we put them on. We can't keep manipulating those talented people who are the crux of the entertainment industry forever, because one day, people will rise up and the gears will stop turning, and popular culture might come to a grinding halt. One way or another, I hope there will come a better day, for all of our sakes.